Browning or searing meat before cooking does two things. It adds an appetizing brown color, and it locks in the meat's rich flavor. But have you ever seared a roast or browned a chicken breast and ended up playing tug of war with it because it stuck to the pan? All you need to successfully brown meat and poultry is a heavy skillet and a little oil. It takes a lot of heat to properly brown meat, and non-stick pans aren't designed for these temperatures. To be safe, use a pan without a non-stick surface. Step 1. Prep the meat. Take meat or chicken out of the fridge a few minutes before you brown it. Pat the meat dry with a paper towel to remove any moisture. You want to bring the meat to room temperature and dry off the surface as much as possible to reduce sticking when you drop it in the hot pan. If your recipe calls for seasoning, add salt, pepper, or spices prior to browning. Step 2. Turn on the heat. Place a heavy stainless steel or cast iron pan on the stovetop and turn the heat to medium-high. Heating up a pan takes a few minutes depending on the pan you use, but it's worth the wait. A hot pan helps prevent sticking. How do you know if your pan is hot enough? Drop 1/8 teaspoon of water into the pan. If it sits and bubbles, the pan is too cold. Give it more time. If it scatters into tiny balls, the pan is too hot. Take it off the heat and let it cool down a bit. Give the hot oil enough time to sear the meat, which gives it its own non-stick surface. If you get a little sticking when you try to turn it over, it needs more searing time. Give it another minute and try to flip it again. Brush the meat with the oil instead of putting it in the pan. Either way, be sure to use oil that doesn't smoke over medium-high heat. Canola or corn oil works great. Step 4. Drop in your meat. Use tongs so you don't pierce the meat and allow juices to escape. And set a few pieces in a single layer in the hot pan. Be sure to leave enough room between pieces so steam can evaporate. Brown the meat in small batches to avoid crowding the pan. Don't flip the pieces right away. Give the hot oil enough time to sear the meat, which gives it its own non-stick surface. If you get a little sticking when you try to turn it over, it needs more searing time. Give it another minute and try to flip it again. This basic browning technique works for ground meat as well. Just heat your pan, add oil, and brown in batches. Browning your meat and poultry gives it a delicious head start on cooking. What happens after browning depends on your recipe. For example, you may brown a pot roast before roasting, or brown chicken pieces before adding wet ingredients to cook in the oven. Proper, patient browning is an easy way to seal in your meat's flavor and give it a rich, appetizing color.